Are you someone who's growing your sales career? I've got something you are absolutely going to need. This is the 4 deal killers the salespeople run into each and every day, and here's just a couple of tips on how to solve them. And they exist in just about every deal and every opportunity that you're working on. It helps to know what they are so that you can know how to address them. And the main thing, before I even share what the deal killers are for you that you really need to know, the deal killers should never arise at the source of the sales professional. You should not be the one injecting the deal killers into your deal. Know that they'll pop up, and then know how to handle them when they do. So a lot of people, when I talk about this, they say, well, what are the deal killers? Is it objections? Is it presentation? And salespeople always want to guess at some part that's their part, and it's none of those things. The deal killers are real simple. And what's crazy about the deal killers is they make for the best villain movies. They make for the best superhero movies. They make for the best dramas because the 4 deal killers show up in all of those places. You know, years ago, I watched a movie called Wall Street. Not the newer one with the young fella, but the other one with Michael Douglas. I can't think of the young fella's name. But the one with Michael Douglas and young Bud Fox, who was played by Charlie Sheen, that really had the 4 deal killers. And so I'll tell you what they are first, and then we'll talk about how they apply to your sales, and you'll see how they made for a great villain movie. Well, the first one is greed. The second one is ego. The third one is fear. And the fourth one is time. And those 3 elements on their own they just are what they are. But when applied in a certain way to your deals, they will kill them. When applied in a certain way to a movie, it'll make it a blockbuster. You know, you think back to the movie Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas's character, he was greedy. Young Bud Fox, he was greedy. Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas's character, he had a giant ego, right? Charlie Sheen's dad in the movie, who was actually Charlie Sheen's dad in real life, he was fearful. He was afraid his son was going to get in trouble. He was just terrified of the whole thing. I don't like this, son. This is all scary. And then they used time in a different kind of way. They were trying to get results at a faster clip than they were legally allowed to. And in the end, people went to jail and fortunes were lost. But in your sales world, when greed, ego, fear, and time rear their ugly head, you lose money. You lose deals. Customers miss out on solutions that will work for them. So when will you see greed in a deal? Greed is when you, the salesperson, tries to, I went to buy a car last year in Florida, and every dealer they marked up their new cars anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 for a new car. This was insane. And they were doing it because they could. There were supply chain shortages at the time, and they just said, well, this is our price. And I think they called it market pricing. What are we, in a fish restaurant? And so, no, we were not. We were in a dealership. And so I left the dealership without making the purchase on several occasions because they insisted on charging market prices, which was $10,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 more than the car that I was looking for. And greed killed their deal. And they just kept presenting their greedy deal, and enough people said yes to it, I guess. But eventually, the market adjusted, and that foolishness has since gone away. The next one is ego. The ego rears its head when you have a client that says, you can't tell me anything. Or maybe you're selling to a husband and wife, and one spouse thinks that you are showing them up and looking too good in the eyes of the other spouse. And their ego gets hurt, their feelings get hurt. And you have to be careful, you have to watch for that, and you have to make sure that you are speaking to them in a way that helps you avoid letting the ego of the clients interfere with the sale. And so you have to remember, this is where you use the things that they shared with you in discovery, and you have to use what they've been giving you as a part of the solution. You know, when you told me this was important, I knew this might work for you. Thank you. What a great idea you had. And you have to speak to their ego. Now, you don't have to coddle them, but you do have to respect that their ego could get in the way, and you have to prevent that from happening. And then, of course, fear. Fear keeps clients from buying from you. It does. Well, I'm afraid if I spend the money on this, then I won't have it for that. Fear keeps salespeople from talking to clients, from prospecting, from asking for the appointment, it keeps them from selling the right solution. Maybe I'm going to sell this cheaper one because I get more yeses with that, regardless of whether it solves the problem for the client. And when you start dabbling in fear as a sales professional, you have already lost. And so the last one that comes into play is time. As a sales professional, more often than not, it is the slowing down of time that kills your deal than it is the speeding up of time. Now, sometimes going too quickly can kill your deal. You get in with a client, you race right towards your presentation, you race right towards your recommendation, you jump in because you heard somebody on TV say, ABC, always be closing, and you start closing before you know anything about your clients. Well, then you are moving too quickly and time is killing your deal in that way. But more often than not, time is killing your deal because you or your client are inserting things into the process that don't belong there. And maybe your client needs to sign a document and you say, well, I'm going to have my office person mail one out to you. When you could just actually put it in your hand and drive past their office the next morning and take it to them and let them sign off on it. But instead, you've added the mail and you've added your office person to the mix, and it's made this thing take longer, and it's increased your margin for error and mess ups. In 2001, I had a big sale to go do sales training at a technology company. Now, I'm not a technology guy, but I'm a sales guy. And so I was going to go and help their salespeople get more sales, get a higher return. We set the deal. It was ready to go. And they were going to pay me when I arrived, when I stepped off the plane. And I had an opportunity to go and do my sales training on the last week of August. And I thought, you know what? I really would like to go out and visit my friends in another state. And so I put off the trip to Colorado, which is where it was at the time, to go and do this sales training. And we were going to do it a couple of weeks later. Well, you know what a couple of weeks later was? It was the week of September 11th. And so the week that I was supposed to be doing the training, or the week after, was the week after September 11th happened. The company got scared, the world got scared, everybody stopped flying, and everybody got a little jittery. And I ended up losing a $35,000 initial client that would have been a client for years and years and years to come. Because instead of doing what I should do now, I put it off for 2 weeks later. And 2 weeks later, that deal was no longer available. Greed, ego, fear, and time. If you're looking for ways to kill deals, just insert one of these things. If you're looking for ways to make sure that more of your deals happen, find a way to work through these challenges as they arrive. And don't be surprised by them because you know that they are there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this next one. I try to put something in every video that's going to help you move the meter immediately. Something you can go out and implement right away. This next video has exactly the thing you've been looking for.